Hello folks, welcome to Edupedia World. I am Abhinay Gupta. So today we'll start with a new chapter, which is the producer company. Some of you may be familiar with the producer company, most of you may not. If you're studying this chapter for the first time, let me tell you, it is not the film producer, right? It is not a manufacturing entity too. It is a company incorporated under the Companies Act, right? With the basic produce of a producer company is related to the farmers, the agriculture, right? The people engaged in the handloom, handicraft, cottage industries, etc. Right? So in the chapter moving ahead, we'll understand what a producer company is, how is it incorporated, how is it formulated, right? What are the basic objectives? How do you convert yourself into a producer company? How do you reconvert into something else and again come back? So there are various things, members, patronage bonus. There are a lot of things that you will understand in the chapter, and there will be many new terms that you will come across in the chapter. It is a little different from the other companies, right? Its entire structure is a little different from the other companies. So I'll try and make this chapter interesting for you. So today, when we start this chapter, I'm not trying to scare you, but yeah, we will see the sections in this chapter. In this lecture, we will only see in detail, or we'll just calculate on our finger, we'll just point out the various sections of this chapter. Don't be scared because there are too many sections in this chapter. You don't have to mug up all of them. I will tell you which are the important sections too. Like which are the sections that you definitely need to know. You need to quote and jot down the section numbers in your examinations. And you can be a little light on the other sections. So, and there's one very easy thing to remember in this chapter is the section number, which is 581. And then you have the postfix A, B, C, D, E, F, G, Z, Z, A, Z, B, Z, C and stuff, right? So even if you don't remember those specific alphabets of the section, mentioning section 581 obviously won't fetch you the marks. But if you know, or let me inform it to you, Institute doesn't have an extra additional marks for the sections. But yeah, it is obviously advisable to write down the sections if you know it exactly which one it is. Playing a bluff around it may cause reduction of your marks, right? If you don't write the section, there is no negative marking, but if you write the wrong section, your answer goes for a toss. So remember, write the sections only if you remember it exactly. Okay, so in this lecture we'll just go through the number of sections. We'll just see what sections are, and I'll tell you what important sections are, and we'll deal with those sections in detail in the next lecture. So to start with, section 581A, which contains the definitions. The definitions of what a producer company is, who are producers, what is a producer institution, what are their primary producers, patronage bonus, etc. There are a lot of definitions that you will need to know, but for your exam purpose there will be 4-5 specific definitions that could be important, that will help you in writing your answers. I'll specifically discuss those definitions and then we'll move ahead, right? So the first section was section 581A, definition. The second section is section 581B. We'll go in alphabetical order, right? So that it is easy for you to understand and remember. After the definition, we have the objects of the producer company. And then 581C, formation of a producer company and its registration. Then we have 581C is an important section for your exam point of view. You have been asked questions based on this section in the past examinations, and that was not once. It was asked thrice in your previous examinations. One was in May 2008, then in November 2011 and November 2014. That was a very recent examination, right? So you can see the way this section is being repeated. So if there is a section that is being repeated in your examinations, I would suggest this section should be on your fingertips. You should know each and every provision of this section, right? So this way I'll go ahead and I'll tell you what are the important sections, when were they asked in examinations, what are the basic questions among those sections that were asked in examinations. This will help you to understand your focus areas, right? You need to know what are the sections that you need to focus on, which is your first priority. After you complete them, you go on to the other sections with a lighter mode, right? Next is section 581D, which is membership and voting right of the members of the producer company. Then you have section 581E, that is the benefits to the members, right? And following it you have section 581F, which deals with the memorandum of the producer company. And you have been asked a question based on this topic in your examination in November 2005. They had asked you the requirements of the memorandum, right? Then after 581F, it's 581G, which is about the article of association of a producer company. And you had been recently asked a question in November 2014, right? It was specifically on the articles of association. Memorandum of the producer company and the article of the producer company. You have been asked a question once in your examination. So these were not so very important topics, but yeah, there is one master topic among them, that is section 581H, which deals with the amendment of memorandum. You have been asked questions n number of times in your examinations. This is one of the most important section in this entire chapter. So when we deal with this chapter in detail, you have to keep in mind that you'll have to pay a special attention when we are discussing section 581H, which is the amendment of the memorandum, right? So if I tell you when and what were the attempts when you have been asked questions on the same, it was in November 2006 and November 2012. At that time, both the years, you had been asked questions about the requirement to shift the registered office, right? So it dealt with the provisions given about the shifting of registered office in the memorandum. You had been asked questions in more attempts, like the provisions related to the donation and subscription was asked in May 2007. And then you had been asked question about the content of the amendment or the provisions of how a memorandum is amended and the provisions in November 2008 and November 2007. So basically this section has been asked 5 times in your previous 10 attempts. So on an average it has been repeated in every second attempt. It has been asked in November 2006, May 2007, 2008, 2012, 2012, right? Okay, next is section 581I, after which we have I, which is the amendment of article. So far you have not been asked a question on the amendment of article, and 2014 November was the first attempt when you had been asked a question on the article of association. So maybe this has been a lucky escape so far, but amendment of article can be a question in your next examination. Right? Because even the memorandum of the producer company was asked once, and then soon after that, like it was asked in November 2005, and then with 6, 7 and 8 they had started with the amendments of memorandum, and for the first time you had been asked article of association, and now there may be a chance of asking about the amendments of the article, right? And my dear friends, you cannot leave any topic. That is one thing I assured you on day one, that if you are doing any particular chapter, do it completely. Cover it 100%. If you want to leave something, leave an entire chapter. Because your effort goes in vain if you have covered 90% of a chapter and the question comes from the rest 10%. So that is a big risk, right? So first thing is I would suggest don't leave a chapter, because law is not a difficult subject. It is not a time consuming subject, right? It is all what you need to know is you need to understand the concept, understand what the law wants to communicate, what the law wants to convey, and that is all about it, because you are basically asked questions based on the case studies in your examinations now. So you should know that if somebody has done the act in this manner, is it correct or is it wrong? And if it is wrong, what is the correct procedure? Right? And if you know a case study based on that, that will be an add-on point If you know sections, that is another bonus point. That will enhance the presentation of your answer. You don't have any specific marks for the sections, but yeah, indeed, the person who is checking it will have a positive impression and will have a better presentation. Right? Maybe after looking at the section number, if it is correct, he won't even read the entire question and give you the full mark. Right? So, after the amendment of article, you have next section, section 581J. Again, this is a very important topic. You have been asked question frequently in your examinations. So 581J is the option to interstate cooperative society to become a producer company. Now this is the conversion of an interstate cooperative society into the producer company. So the procedures of the conversion have been asked in your examinations. So what are the things that have been asked in examination? That is the list of documents to be submitted. That was asked in November 2005. The next is the steps for conversion. It has been asked twice already, May 2006 and November 2013. Right? So this is another important topic. You have been asked thrice in your past 10 attempts. Okay. Now moving on to the next topic, it is section 581K, the effect of incorporation of producer company. Right? What are the privileges that they have after the company comes into incorporation? 581L, that deals with the vesting of an undertaking in a producer company. Okay, we'll just brush over the sections now. We'll understand and know about the section in our later classes, right? So the next is section 581M, concession etc. to be deemed to have been granted to the producer company. What are the concessions that have been given to the producer company? Then you have section 581N, the provision in respect to the officers and other employees of the interstate cooperative society. It is not talking about the producer company. It is talking about the ISCS, right, which is the interstate cooperative society. So these were sections that have not been picked up by the examiner in your examinations recently. I mean in the past 10 attempts if you consider, but anyways, if you're doing it, do it completely. So it's not bad to know the provisions. We'll deal with it later in the chapter. Next section is an important section, which is section 581O, the number of directors. Right? It has been asked in May 2008 and November 2011. These questions were specifically on the number of directors, on the limitations, right? But you have been asked questions more often in your examination. I'll tell you when was it. Another section that is important is section 581P, the appointment of directors. So clubbing these two sections together, the number of director and the appointment of director, you have been asked questions in your examination. That was in November 2007. Right, where the question was asked by clubbing the two sections, where you had to specify the provisions of section 581O as well as sections of provisions of section 581P. Next you have section 581Q, which is the vacation of office of director. Obviously if you are appointed, you will vacate the office one day. So you have the provisions. And this is not a very light topic. It has been asked in your examination in November 2010. Right? Next is section 581R, which is the power and function of the board. Now this is again important topic. It has been asked frequently in your examinations in May 2007, November 2009 and May 2013. In May 2013 and November 2009, in both these examinations you had been asked questions about the loan to director. Right? Does the board has the power to sanction loan to the director? This was a specific question from this section that has been asked twice in your examination already. Right? So the next section is section 581S, the matter to be transacted in the general meeting. Again you have been asked question on this topic too, which was in November 2009. Right? It was linked to the above section, the section 581R. You had been asked questions on the loan to director. Right? And the question wanted you to answer referring to the matters to be transacted in general meeting also, because you have to get it approved by the shareholders. Right? So it was a combined question with the two sections. Now following this, the topic won't be very important, but we'll browse through the sections quickly. That is section 581T, liability of the directors, 581U, committee of directors, 581V, the meeting of the board and the quorum that is required for the meeting. Then it is 581W, which is the chief executive and his functions. Right? Then we have 581X, the secretary of a producer company. When is a producer company required to appoint a secretary? This has been asked most recently in your May 2015 examination. So if any producer company has his turnover exceeding rupees 5 crores in consecutive 3 financial years, then it is a mandate for the producer company to appoint a company secretary in his company, right? We'll talk about it in detail later. Next is section 581Y, the quorum of the meeting. Then we have 581Z, the voting rights of the members. 581ZA, now you have the Z series, ZA, B, C, D series, right? Starting from here. So section 581ZA deals with the annual general meeting. Section 581ZB, the share capital, to which the question has been asked in November 2011, right? Then you have section 581ZC, the special user rights. Moving ahead, we have section 581ZD, the transferability of the share and attendant right. And you have, this is not a very light topic, the question has been asked in May 2008. Then you have section 581ZE, the books of accounts of a producer company. Next is 581ZF, the internal audit. You have not been asked any question on both these sections, but you have been asked a question on a next section, which is section 581ZG, the duties of an auditor under this part, right? And that has been in very recent examination, May 2014. Next you have section 581ZH, the donation or subscription by a producer company. Whether you are allowed to take a donation or give out donation and subscription is dealt by section 581ZH. Next you have section 581ZI, the general and other reserves. Section 581ZJ, the issue of bonus share. And now this has been asked twice in your examinations, in May 2008 and May 2009, right? Then you have section 581ZK, loan etc. to the members. Section 581ZL, investment in other companies, formation of subsidiaries etc., right? Asked in May 2013. Then you have section 581ZM, the penalty for the contraventions of above. Section 581ZN, amalgamation, merger or division etc. to form a new producer company. Right, when two producer companies amalgamate or they demerge or divide and split into two producer companies, that is section 581ZN. Then you have section 581ZO, the disputes. Section 581ZP, where you strike off the name of the producer company. What are the circumstances when the name of the producer company is striked off? Then you have just 4 more sections remaining. Section 581ZQ, the provision of this part to override other laws. It is not exactly, what do you mean by overriding other laws is that you have to follow the provisions of section 581ZQ along with the other provisions of the Companies Act. But if at any point of time any section contradicts with section 581, then section 581 will have a ruling advantage over that, right? You'll have to go ahead with section 581 instead of the other provisions of the Companies Act. Then you have section 581ZR, application of provision related to the private companies. 581ZS, that is reconversion of the producer company to interstate cooperative society, right? You have seen our earlier section 581J, where the interstate cooperative society was converted into a producer company, and section 581ZS deals with the reconversion, that is back to the interstate cooperative society. Then you have 581ZT, the power to modify the act and its application to the producer company. So with this, we come to the end of the big list of sections, right? You have a lot of sections, that is somewhere close to around 50 sections, right? But when we were browsing through the sections, I made it very clear which are the sections that have been asked in your examinations, and there are few sections that have been repeatedly asked in your examinations. So those are the major sections where you will focus a lot, but you will not miss out on any of the provisions or any other sections. It is very simple, very brief. I'll give it to you in detail, but you can, and I'll also give it to you what are the basic points that you need to actually keep in mind, which will help you to solve the questions in the examination if asked on these sections, right? Otherwise, the important section will deal in detail, and I'll try that you know each and every line, each and every point in detail of the section. So get into detail of these sections. We'll switch to the next lecture. So until then, stay tuned. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching Edupedia World. This is Abhinay Gupta signing off.